Emily Turner and her friends thought it was just another ordinary afternoon in their quiet Ohio town, but by nightfall Emily would be gone, vanished without a trace, leaving behind a mystery that would shake the entire community and haunt everyone who thought they knew her. In a quiet, unassuming town in Ohio, the disappearance of 16-year-old Emily Turner sent shockwaves through the community. Emily was known for her bright smile, her love of music, and her habit of always helping others whenever she could. She lived a relatively ordinary life, attending school, spending time with friends, and hanging out at local parks on warm afternoons. On the day she went missing, Emily had told her parents she was going to meet some friends at the town's Central Park. It was a place she had visited countless times before, a spot where she felt safe and comfortable. But this time, she never returned. Her parents grew concerned when hours passed and she didn't answer her phone. At first, they assumed she had gotten distracted or lost track of time, but as evening approached, worry turned into panic. Friends and neighbors were alerted, and a search began immediately. People combed through nearby streets, parks, and alleyways, calling her name, hoping for a response. Flyers with her picture were printed and posted on telephone poles, in stores, and on social media. The small town, which had rarely faced anything so serious, became consumed with the search. The local police department got involved, and an investigation was launched. Detectives went over every detail of Emily's day, questioning friends, teachers, and anyone who had been near the park that afternoon. They looked at her phone records, social media accounts, and messages, hoping for a clue that might indicate where she had gone or who she had been with. Everything they found seemed ordinary, leaving no immediate leads or suspects. Her phone was switched off around the time she vanished, and there were no reports of anyone seeing her leave the park. The trail was cold, and the uncertainty only intensified the fear gripping her family. The town held its collective breath, hoping for any sign of Emily's return. Local volunteers organized search parties, walking through wooded areas and abandoned lots, calling her name into the quiet evening air. The local news picked up the story, broadcasting her disappearance across the state. The story struck a chord with viewers, many of whom were parents themselves, imagining the fear and helplessness her family must have been feeling. The situation grew more distressing as days turned into a week, and still there was no sign of Emily. Neighbors began to speculate and theorize about what might have happened, but the answers remained elusive. Each hour that passed without word of her safety made the atmosphere in town heavier, as families began to lock doors and parents kept their children closer. Emily's room remained untouched, a haunting reminder of her absence. The search expanded, involving state authorities and specialized units, but despite their best efforts, Emily's whereabouts remained unknown. What had seemed like a simple outing to the park had turned into a nightmare that no one could explain, leaving the entire town desperate for answers and hoping for a miracle. As the investigation into Emily Turner's disappearance continued, detectives began to piece together fragments of her life in search of any clues that might explain what had happened. Her friends were interviewed extensively, with police asking about her routines, recent behavior, and anyone who might have caused her concern. At first, nothing seemed unusual. Emily had been a typical teenager, focused on school, music, and spending time with friends. Yet, the more investigators dug, the more subtle inconsistencies began to emerge. Certain messages on her phone suggested she had been communicating with someone she hadn't mentioned to her family. Some texts were vague, others strange, and the tone of a few hinted at worrying or hesitation. Though none of these messages directly explained her disappearance, they added an unsettling layer to the mystery. Investigators also examined the day she went missing, starting with the park she had planned to visit. Witnesses recalled seeing her there, but only briefly. One grainy surveillance camera captured a fleeting figure walking behind her, matching her approximate height and build. The footage was unclear, the person's features impossible to distinguish, but the timing raised alarm. Police believed someone had been following her, though who and why remained unknown. They retraced her steps from home to the park, questioning anyone who might have seen her along the way. Every lead was examined, yet the trail seemed to vanish as quickly as it appeared, leaving only questions. While the search for Emily intensified, detectives explored her digital footprint. Her social media accounts were analyzed, revealing unusual activity in the days leading up to her disappearance. Emily had been sharing posts about feeling watched, though she never explained what she meant. Some posts hinted at meeting someone new she had recently gotten to know online, someone she trusted but hadn't told anyone about. Investigators wondered if these online interactions were connected to her disappearance and whether someone had exploited her trust. Neighbors were interviewed repeatedly as authorities sought even the smallest detail that might point to a lead. People remembered seeing unfamiliar cars parked near Emily's usual routes, and one neighbor mentioned a man who seemed to be watching the park from a distance. The community's unease grew with each revelation, and the fear that Emily might have been deliberately targeted began to take hold. Even seemingly ordinary places, the park, the streets, the local shops, started to feel threatening. Every detail, no matter how minor, became a potential key to solving the puzzle. As days passed, the investigation took on a tense, almost desperate tone. Police organized search teams to revisit locations Emily had been known to frequent. Volunteers scoured wooded areas and abandoned lots, calling out her name and listening for any response. Authorities hoped that by combining the witness accounts, digital clues, and subtle anomalies in her daily life, a clearer picture of her last hours could emerge. But the more they searched, the more the mystery deepened. It seemed as if Emily had disappeared into the shadows, leaving behind only faint traces of a life interrupted and a community desperate for answers that seemed increasingly out of reach. 2 weeks into the search for Emily Turner, the case had begun to weigh heavily on everyone involved. The town remained tense, with residents casting anxious glances at abandoned buildings, wooded areas, and empty streets. Despite the tireless efforts of police and volunteers, there was still no sign of her. Then, a discovery that seemed almost accidental changed everything. A local hiker exploring the outskirts of town stumbled across an old, crumbling house. The building had been abandoned for years, its windows broken and weeds growing thick around the foundation. Its presence had long been ignored by the community, considered nothing more than a relic of the past. The hiker noticed an unusual disturbance near the back door, trash scattered, footprints in the dirt, and immediately called the authorities. When police arrived, the building was approached with caution. The abandoned house had a reputation in the town for being eerie, a place no one dared to enter after dark. Officers entered carefully, flashlights cutting through layers of dust and darkness. The air inside was heavy, filled with the smell of damp wood and decay. As they moved through the rooms, the officers noticed signs that someone had been there recently: broken furniture, footprints on the floor, and objects that didn't belong in a house left to the elements. Then, in a small room at the back of the house, hidden beneath piles of blankets and old furniture, they made a discovery that would shock the town: Emily Turner. The scene was haunting. Emily was found lying still, her presence an immediate confirmation of the worst fears the community had been struggling to face. Evidence of struggle was visible in the room: overturned furniture, torn fabric, and scuff marks on the walls. It was clear she had been trapped there, unable to escape. The discovery sent shockwaves through the police department, who immediately cordoned off the scene for forensic investigation. Investigators combed through every detail in the room, documenting fingerprints, fibers, and any trace of the person responsible. The abandoned house, once overlooked and forgotten, had become the center of a chilling investigation. Word of Emily's discovery spread quickly through the town. Families who had been searching tirelessly felt a mix of relief and sorrow, knowing that her disappearance had ended, but in a way none had hoped. The media arrived, reporting on the grim reality, while neighbors and friends tried to process the news. The abandoned house, a place that had once been merely an empty structure, was now forever marked by tragedy. Each day, investigators uncovered small pieces of the story, like footprints leading to hidden corners, objects arranged in odd patterns, and evidence that someone had been watching her. These details painted a disturbing picture of Emily's final days and the level of premeditation involved. As the investigation deepened, it became clear that the abandoned house had not been a random location. Someone had intentionally chosen it, knowing it was isolated, unnoticed, and ideal for hiding their actions. The discovery raised terrifying questions about who could have known Emily's routines, who might have followed her, and how long she had been trapped there. Every clue, no matter how small, pointed to a calculated act, and the town's sense of safety was shattered. The abandoned house, once a silent relic, had become a chilling testament to the danger that had been hiding in plain sight, and it marked the beginning of a search not just for answers, but for justice. After Emily Turner was discovered in the abandoned house, the investigation took on a new and urgent intensity. Forensic teams combed the scene with painstaking detail, analyzing fingerprints, fibers, and traces of DNA. Every object in the room was examined, from overturned chairs to scattered personal items. Investigators noticed signs that Emily had been held against her will, but there were also indications that she had tried to make her presence known. Small notes, marks on the floor, and objects moved in an attempt to signal for help. Each clue added to the picture of her final hours, revealing both the fear she must have experienced and the calculated nature of her confinement. Detectives returned to the network of people Emily had interacted with before her disappearance, focusing on those who might have had access to her or knowledge of her routines. Background checks, phone records, and digital communications were all scrutinized. Through this meticulous process, a disturbing pattern began to emerge. Certain individuals had provided misleading information, omitted key details, or displayed unusual behavior when questioned. One particular person, previously considered a trusted acquaintance of Emily, began to draw attention. Subtle inconsistencies in their statements, combined with traces of their presence in the areas Emily had frequented, created a growing sense of suspicion. Police also revisited surveillance footage from around the town. The grainy images captured weeks earlier, once thought to be insignificant, were now re-examined for subtle details that might have been overlooked. The figure seen following Emily at the park was cross-referenced with license plates, vehicle registrations, and digital timestamps. Forensic experts enhanced the images as much as technology allowed, seeking patterns that could link the shadowy figure to known associates of Emily. Every minor detail became critical, as even the smallest piece of evidence could confirm a suspect's presence at the scene. As investigators pieced together the timeline of Emily's last hours, a chilling realization emerged. The person responsible had been carefully monitoring her movements, tracking her routines, and waiting for the perfect opportunity. The abandoned house was chosen deliberately, not randomly, providing isolation and concealment. Items in the room indicated that Emily had been aware of the danger and had attempted to resist or escape. Police reconstructed her path from the park to the house, noting where she had been intercepted and how the suspect had manipulated the situation. It became clear that the disappearance was not a spontaneous act but a premeditated plan, executed with careful attention to detail. The revelation that someone Emily knew and trusted could be responsible sent shockwaves through the community. Neighbors and friends were forced to reconsider the people around them, questioning what they had taken for granted. Every interaction, every casual acquaintance was now seen through the lens of suspicion. Investigators worked tirelessly, following leads and corroborating evidence, determined to bring the perpetrator to justice. The deeper the investigation went, the more it revealed the calculated cruelty behind Emily's confinement and the extent to which someone had exploited her trust. Each new fact added to the suspense, leaving the town grappling with the unsettling truth that danger often hides in plain sight and that even familiar faces can conceal dark intentions. The arrest of the suspect marked a turning point in the case, but the sense of relief was tempered by the gravity of what had happened. Evidence collected from the abandoned house, including fingerprints, fibers, and digital traces, was carefully cataloged and presented to build a strong case. Investigators had painstakingly reconstructed Emily Turner's final hours, linking the suspect to the location and timeline with compelling detail. The community watched as law enforcement detailed the evidence, and the realization that justice was underway brought a mixture of closure and sorrow. Families who had feared the worst were finally able to begin processing the enormity of the loss. As the legal proceedings unfolded, prosecutors revealed the meticulous planning involved in the crime. The suspect had observed Emily's routines, identified moments when she would be alone, and chosen the abandoned house for its isolation. Items found in the house, along with digital communications, painted a disturbing picture of premeditation and control. The details shocked the town and reinforced the importance of vigilance and awareness. Even as the courtroom trial progressed, the story of Emily's disappearance and confinement captured public attention, highlighting both the fragility of safety and the resilience of those determined to seek justice. Throughout the trial, Emily's family remained at the center of the community's support. Vigils, memorials, and moments of remembrance were held in her honor, bringing people together to mourn and to celebrate her life. Friends shared stories of her kindness, creativity, and vibrant personality, emphasizing that she was more than a tragic victim. She was a young life full of potential and dreams. The collective grief of the town underscored the impact one life can have on a community, and the shared determination to honor her memory became a source of strength for her family. The eventual conviction of the suspect brought formal closure, but the emotional wounds ran deep. Residents grappled with the unsettling truth that danger can come from those who seem familiar, and that even a small, quiet town is not immune to tragedy. Discussions about safety, awareness, and trust became more common, with families taking extra precautions and teaching their children to be vigilant. The case became a cautionary tale, emphasizing that careful observation, communication, and community support are essential in protecting young lives. In the months and years that followed, Emily Turner's memory remained a constant presence in the town. The abandoned house was demolished, but its history could not be erased. People remembered her as a symbol of resilience, of the importance of paying attention to subtle signs of danger, and of the power of a community coming together in the face of tragedy. While justice had been served, the story continued to resonate, reminding everyone that awareness, empathy, and courage are vital in confronting the unexpected. Emily's life, though cut short, left a lasting impact, ensuring that her name and the lessons learned from her story would not be forgotten.